This is the Morning Swim Show for Tuesday, May 14th, 2013. I'm your host, Jeff Cummings. Joining me today in the Finis Monitor will be John Dussliere. He made a big career change recently, moving away from coaching pool and open water swimmers to working with USA Boxing. He's now the organization's sport director, and he joins us now from his office in Colorado Springs, Colorado. John, it's good to see you again. How are you?
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks. I'm fine.
Well, it's, like I said, different capacity, but still working with coaches, and I'm sure it's great still working in that capacity.
Yeah, there's the differences of going into a different gym environment, I think.
Very different gym environment.
Yeah.
Well, I guess if you had asked me to guess which sport you were going to be moving from after swimming, I don't think boxing would have been in my top 10. So what sparked this move to move to that organization?
Well, and I never really thought of an after swimming for myself personally. After the great time that I've had from Stanford to Santa Barbara, Mission Viejo, all those years, I decided this year I was going to take a little break, whether it was going to be 6 months or a year. And right in the middle of it, I moved here to Colorado Springs. I met the executive director of USA Boxing just socially, and we talked a little more. And with me not working at the time, he thought it would be an interesting thing. Boxing is going through some major changes right now in just administratively, the way we're conducting our national team trips, camps, how we're selecting them. He really wanted to see something as squeaky clean as a swimming person come in because of the reputation of swimming. And, here I am.
And obviously, I mean, swimming is about as far from boxing as you can get. Well, I guess maybe open water swimming may have some things in common. I mean, people throw punches in order to win, like with boxing. But so far, have you seen anything in the sport of boxing that you can use your swimming expertise to make the sport better?
Well, the training is a lot more similar than you would expect. Just a typical training session goes through a very thorough warm-up, just as you would in the pool, doing some specific technique work and drill progressions into putting the aerobically to throw up in the ring and then putting it into practice, a lot like a swimming practice, if it's put together well.
So, John, before you met with the director of USA Boxing, did you have any previous experience with boxing, or did you have any knowledge of what USA Boxing does in general?
Well, I've always followed boxing, really all my life, having some childhood friends who boxed, and then going to quite a few big-time boxing events in Las Vegas. So I've always been a fan, but the ins and outs of USA Boxing I really didn't have any experience with.
And now you're a sport director for USA Boxing. Tell me specifically what your duties are there.
Well, it's really working with the USOC sport performance team, just as they do in USA Swimming, to develop our 4-year plans for success in Rio. I mean, that's the very small version of what we do. Specifically, we plan all of the international tournaments that we're going to be going to, how we select our teams that will go to those tournaments in the lead up, and then working on our boxing youth pipeline into the national team.
Now, boxing, at least I guess the amateur boxing, is very similar, as you said, to swimming. There's a 4-year cycle leading up to the Olympics. In terms of similarities, is it pretty much the same kind of evolution toward the Olympic Games that swimming had in terms of, world championships every other year, big international meets that kind of build up to that?
Yeah, it's very similar. So that stuff was really easy to get a grip on. Like this year, we have the men's world championships and the women's continental championships, and they alternate every other year in the lead up. And also we have Pan American Games, and very similar schedules.
I'm curious though, obviously with boxing and swimming both being sports where the highest pinnacle is every 4 years at the Olympics, and you know that swimming was always struggling to gain that long time exposure between Olympic years. Is boxing trying to get that same kind of exposure, or are they happy with the way it is right now?
Well, I think that there's a lot of things going on in boxing with the professional boxing that we have. One of the very tough things to work on with our men's team is keeping them in our pipeline and not going professional, because there's a big pot of gold if you're in those major fights. Whereas swimming, the money is more sponsorship rather than going to yet another level beyond the Olympic Games.
Yeah, what is the biggest incentive, I guess, you use to keep these kids from going over to professional boxing?
Well, what we're doing right now is starting a campaign that I started called Fight for the Flag. Really building in our athletes that there's something bigger than us as individuals, and that's Team USA and literally and figuratively fighting for the flag.
Well, so far you've only been there a few months. I know you're still kind of, I guess, to mix metaphors, getting your feet wet. But what do you like about USA Boxing?
Well, one of the greatest things I think is the staff that our executive directors put together through the changes that have happened in boxing. We have the right people, and it's not a large staff. I think there's only 13 or 14 people that work for boxing, and in my department, the high performance, there's 3 or 4 of us, and we can move quickly. We can make a decision and act on it right away, well, obviously within our budget. And then if we see that we're somehow going the wrong direction, we can make a quick turn. So, we're pretty nimble in what we can do.
What's been the biggest adjustment for you so far? I guess maybe outside of moving from California to Colorado.
I think as a swimming coach for that long, and it's a double-edged sword, is not getting up and going to the pool in the morning. It's a very strange thing. I've been doing that since I was 12 years old. But actually, Dave Dennison and the U.S. Paralympic resident team has provided me an outlet. I am going over and coaching 2 mornings a week with them. So that's helped my adjustment away from the pool. At least in a literal sense. I don't have to leave.
Well, I was going to ask you if you kind of stay involved with swimming in any way. Open water nationals is coming up soon. I know you're a big open water fanatic, and you coach the Olympic team in Beijing. But that sounds like it's a really good outlet for you that you can go over and coach those swimmers. Do you think that's going to be something you continue, or is this kind of just a way to wean you off swimming?
Yeah, I actually talked about that in my interview with our executive director here at Boxing. Is I don't know what happens on Tuesday and Thursday mornings, but I would like to remain committed to coaching swimming on those mornings, and so that was welcomed with open arms. It was great. So I get to keep my swimming fix. And as far as the big picture in my involvement in swimming, last week I was in Chicago with the club development committee. I'm still fully committed to swimming. As far as now, it's just not my bread and butter. Now it's back to a volunteer passion.
And I would imagine it's a very different. There are 2 very different conversations you have when you go to a boxing gym and when you go to a pool deck talking to coaches.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how similar it is. I think coaches are coaches, and they want the same thing. They want to see their athletes succeed. So maybe the specific words we're using are different, the instructions are different, but they're very much on a parallel path.
I would say a boxing coach is, their biggest line is, "I want you to punch that guy's lights out." You don't hear that in swimming.
Yeah, and that's what I thought when I started, and I had such an incorrect perception. It's about the physiological side of making it through the men box 3 rounds of 3 minutes and the women box 4 rounds of 2 minutes, and the physical conditioning that takes a center stage in training almost over boxing technique.
Interesting. So it's not about hitting the other guys, just staying up for the whole time.
Well, yeah, it's moving forward, being on the attack, having a great defense. You certainly don't want to get hit, so you have to know what you're doing in there. and you want to be supplying the hits. So I think they've got that handled. So I'll need to get that involved in the specifics of coaching boxing. But as far as getting everybody on the same path in USA boxing, that's really my biggest goal. And we've had some quick success.
Well, it sounds like it was a big learning curve for you, John, but it sounds like you've adjusted and you're taking the reins pretty well.
Yeah, it's, like everything I've ever done, this is a lot of fun, and I love being on the learning curve, and I'm certainly on it now, but it's rewarding. We're already pulling medals away from other countries at the tournaments that we've been to since I've been here, so things are looking great.
That's good news to hear, John. Well, congratulations on this new position, and we're glad to see you're still involved in swimming, and
Yes.
That's great to hear, and great success, and I'm sure is to follow for you.
All right, great. Thank you.
All right, it's our pleasure. All right, so that was John Dussliere joining us in his new position at USA Boxing. We wish him all this great success. And that's going to do it for today's Morning Swim Show. I'm Jeff Cummings. Thanks for watching.